This is 1.2, Evaluate and Simplify Algebraic Expressions. Here's a vocabulary. Power. A power is an expression formed by repeated multiplication of the same factor. Such as x to the third equals x times x times x. Be careful when you're using powers that you multiply by the whole factor. Say you wanted to multiply negative 2x to the third power. That would be negative 2x times negative 2x times negative 2x 3 times. One of the common mistakes is that students will try to just pull into this and say that's negative 2x to the third without multiplying by the negative 2. Also, variable. Variable is a letter used to represent numbers. A term is an expression that can be written as a sum. The parts added together are called the terms. If we have x squared plus 3x plus 7, we have 3 terms in here. The x squared is one term, the 3x is another term, and the 7 is a third term. Coefficient. Coefficient is a number that's multiplied to a variable. An example of this would be negative 3x squared. The coefficient of x squared in this case is negative 3. Identity is a statement that sets two expressions as equal. So if we say x squared equals 9, that would be an identity. Okay, order of operations. Order of operations is the please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And so first, do operations that occur within grouping symbols. And we use a P for that because when you were younger, about the only grouping symbols you had were parentheses. Now you know that a grouping symbol can also be brackets. And then another type of grouping symbols that you may have not thought about before is a division bar or a fraction bar. So if we had something like 3 minus 1 over 2 minus 4, we would need to do the top, then do the bottom, and then divide them. because that division bar acts as a grouping symbol. Okay, step 2. Next, evaluate any powers. And powers we use in the Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally. The E stands for exponents. Exponents we also group together with roots. So we would do all the square roots or cube roots during this step also. Okay, then step 3, then do multiplication and division from left to right. Don't go through and do all the multiplication first and then all the division. That's why we write these on the same line together. We do multiplication and division just like we're reading the numbers in a sentence. And then finally, do all the addition and subtractions again from left to right. So let's go back and look at this again, the example. So first, do the operations that occur within grouping symbols. So my grouping symbols here are my parentheses. So we go ahead and do that first. And 5 minus 3 is a 2. Notice that the correct way to write this is to use a separate line for each step. So I wouldn't just mark out the 5 minus 3 and put a 2 up here and then keep going. That's a quicker way to do it, but it's not the proper way to write it. So I would go ahead and bring down my 1 plus 7 squared. Now I need to, step 2, evaluate the powers. So 7 times 7 is 49. Now rewrite it. And then I would do all the multiplications from left to right. So I would go ahead and do 49 times 2 here. And then do all the additions and subtractions. So I would finally add it together. It's important that you do things in this order because around the world we have the same order of operations. This allows us to all get the same answers for any math problem. Your calculator also does this. So you have to be really careful on your calculator to put in parentheses because your calculator is smart enough to know to do the order of operations. Okay, let's look at example 1 here. We're going to evaluate this expression with 3 terms when y equals negative 5. It's very, very important that when we put y into these, that we put it in parentheses, because that does change the value if I don't put it in parentheses. So anytime that you're substituting, whether it's positive or negative, go ahead and just stick it in parentheses, and that way you'll always be correct. So the solution is y squared, that'd be negative 5 squared, and then minus 11y is negative 11 times negative 5 plus 34. So what did I just do? I substituted negative 5 for y. Dear Aunt Sally rules say that grouping symbols first. I don't have anything. I have grouping symbols, the parentheses, but I don't have any operations and set there. So I go ahead and do step 2, evaluate the power. Negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. And that's why it's important to have the parentheses there. Because if I didn't have the parentheses, it would be a negative 25. So, very important. And then I'm going to leave this negative 5 here and rewrite the rest of it. So now I'm going to multiply. Negative 6 times 25 is negative 150. And then negative 11 times negative 5 is a positive 55. Be really careful about signs and sign changes inside of algebra. It's the most common mistake. Now I'm going to go ahead and add these together. Remember, subtraction is just another form of addition. So negative 150 plus 55 plus 34 would be negative 61. A checkpoint. Go ahead and do checkpoint 1 and 2. Again, be careful of your signs. And when you substitute in for that number, put in parentheses, even though they're both positive. Just, it's a good habit. Start the video again when you've done those. Okay, terms and coefficient. An expression that can be written as a sum, the parts added together, remember, are called terms. A term that has a variable part is a variable term. And a term that has no variable part is a constant. When a term is a product of a number and the power of a variable, the number is called the coefficient. Of the power. Sample 2. Simplify by combining like terms. Let's talk for a moment what like terms are. Like terms are terms that have the same variables to the same powers. 3x squared would be the same, or like terms with negative 4x squared, but would be different than 2x squared a or 2x cubed, because they have the different powers or different variables included in there. So we can only add or subtract like terms. So, solution for A. If I have 11 x's and I subtract 5 x's, I can go ahead and combine this, use the distributive property backwards to say this is 11 minus 5 times x, or 6x. On B, I would need to go ahead and use the distributive property forwards to get this term, and then again to get these. Remember to be very, very careful when you did negative 3 times negative 9 that you get the right sign right here, positive 27. Now, where are my like terms in here? I have 2y minus 3y. If I have 2 yo-yos and I get rid of 3 yo-yos, I have negative 1, but we really don't say 1 when we're multiplying, so just negative y. And then 10 plus 27 is 37. Then I can get rid of that grouping symbol just to make it look a little better, and say that's just negative y plus 37. On C, where are my like terms? I have 14x, and then I have plus 5x. That would be 19x. And then I have negative 6y plus 13y, and that would be 7y. So 19x plus 7y. Checkpoint. Go ahead and do these 4. These are pretty important in algebra, so spend a couple minutes and check over your answer. And that's the end of this video.